Okay, hello geographers. We are looking at the analysis for your GA2 that was given to you. Okay, so please make sure you do your analysis. Okay, plan your answers from the analysis and also check back whether you have answered the question before you write. Okay, a lot of you tend to write a lot of things without planning and analysis, then you lose a lot of marks as a result. Okay, so analyze with me. I want to see the analysis in your GA and make sure you plan and check your answers before you write it out after you watch the video. Alright, first question. Explain why squatter settlements is located in this location. So you are given photograph A, which shows the location of a squatter settlement in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Okay, so you have a squatter settlement here and you have a lot of waste materials. So I think you can already guess what is this area, what kind of land is this. Oops, sorry, what kind of land is this? Okay, so you must use information from here. Okay, so the waste material suggests what, and then hence what are the steps. 3 marks means at least total of 3 steps that leads to why squatter settlements are found near it. Okay, next question, 2A, question 2. Figure 1A and 1B, which shows the planned land supply located to different land use by the Ministry of Development 2010 to 2030. So this is 2010 and then this is 2030. So using figure A and B, compare the land use in Singapore in 2010 and 2030. Okay, so compare 2 marks as I mentioned before. Compare, if you can give, compare means 2 marks, 1 mark equals to one comparison, sorry. This equals to 1 mark. And if you can give at least, if you can give similarities and differences, that would be best. If there's only differences, fine, the 2 marks go to differences. If there's only similarities, fine, the 2 marks go to similarities. But if there are similarities and differences, then you should reserve at least 1 mark for each. So since it's only 2 mark, 1 mark for similarity, 1 mark for difference. Okay, so compare. Okay, which one has more, which one has less. Okay, instead of looking at every single slice, some possible things you can look at is, for example, the biggest land use area. Has it changed? Okay, has it changed from 2010 to 2030? All right. For example, I just mentioned something blindly without looking at the graph. Okay, maybe schools was the one that take up the highest land use allocation, but in 2030, it dropped to hospitals. Okay, so maybe you can mention the highest land use allocated was to hospitals in 2010, to schools in 2010, but in 2030 it has been changed to hospitals. Okay, so likewise, you talk about the most, you can talk about the least, you can talk about the greatest change. Okay, so instead of looking at individual slices, these are possible helping ideas to get you started to look for similarities and differences. Okay, now in more advanced levels, I expect you to group them okay, like for example, which one is infrastructure and stuff like that. But first time you're seeing pie chart, we don't demand you to group. Okay, so you can just look at the slices itself. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. Part B, using figure 1A and 1B, suggests how the changes in land use allocation may affect the price of housing. And this is for 2 marks also. Alright, so price of housing, what determines the price of housing? Most of the time you have learned your content, it's about your land prices. It's also about the kind of developers and where is it located at. Okay, and you have also learned how, especially from the Hong Kong example, if you do not have enough land, okay, if you do not have enough land, what happens is that land prices will, developers will compete, right, to bid for the land, and then they will bid with higher land prices, which make the land prices higher, and then how does it affect the price of housing? Okay, so looking at this graph, looking at the changes, then you look at it for yourself. The land allocated for housing, given how it's changed, how does it affect the price of housing then? Okay, let's go on to the next question. Next question, question 3. Describe how developers and financial support given to them may affect the development of formal housing. Okay, formal housing. So you have learned what are developers, the private and public. How does that affect the development of formal housing? All right, affect can mean both good or bad. So you can talk about how it encourages formal housing or how it discourages formal housing and that to more informal housing. Okay, likewise for financial support, how does that affect the development? Okay, notice the thing we're looking at is development. That means it creates, it has more. Okay, it's not about the prices, it's not about the location. WA1, we're looking at location. Why are they found here? Why are they found there? Okay, but now we're looking at development. How come it is happening? How come it's growing? How come more of it is being developed? All right, so you're only required to describe. That means you just give me the details. You need not show me step by step what does it lead to. Okay, so like for example, developers do this, which then leads to more development of the formal housing and things like that. All right. Okay, let's go on to question 4. Question 4, using figure 3, which is a news article about forests making way for housing development in Singapore. So you have about Dover forest being cleared for housing projects. Okay, which tells you about how 120 species of mammals, all these are being will be likely to be removed. Okay, and then it also acts as a carbon sink, something you learned in Sec 1. All right. So you're asked to describe the impact of housing on the environment. Okay, so you cannot just copy based on here. You must pick out information and link it to terms you have already used. Okay, so for example, all these species that was observed there with the development, what is it got to do with environment when they're affected and how are they affected? Okay, so please describe, give me details of the impact. Okay. And then of course they mention about role in other natural processes. You've already learned, right, what are the natural processes the animals and wild plants can be. Okay, so what will happen when you remove them due to the development of housing. Okay, and last one, using an example, explains how informal housing impacts the natural environment. Okay, so you must give me a case study from your notes or from your textbook of how it impacts the natural environment. So you've already learned, so you're asked to use explain, and you're also asked to give an example. So the use example is probably 1 mark. That means it gives you 3 marks for explanation. Okay, so the first mark is to tell me what is informal housing and where are they located and what would they do. That will then lead to impact on natural environment. Okay, that's the second step already. And then the impact, how does it lead to further impacts on the natural environment? That's the 3rd mark. Okay, so and then use an example. So I recap review, informal housing, how does it affect natural environment? There will be 1 mark. Okay, then natural environment, informal housing, the details, what it does that can affect environment. That will be 1 mark. Okay, and then how it lead to impact on natural environment, that's the 3rd mark. And then the 2nd mark, and then the 3rd mark goes to natural environment. How does it further impacts natural environment? Okay, so I give you a hint. There's an E word, EC word. Okay, you learn already. This EC word is when one part of it is destroyed or affected, what happened to the other part? Of course, and the last mark goes to those who are able to use the example to explain. Okay, so now I hope you have a clearer idea on what to do for your GA. Please make sure you plan your answer before you write and make sure it check back and answers the question before you write it out. All right, all the best.